Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And there is no one else on the other end of the tin can and string because Arif is traveling today. So, instead, we do have an interview that Arif conducted earlier today with Lauren Cox of the Locked On Bears podcast, and we'll cut to that in just a moment. If you enjoy the show and would like to financially support us, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go over to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there for $3.50 a month. You get access to things like the bonus episodes. You get access to the Discord. I just put out a bonus episode forum, which is much like the Christmas episode that you received when you went over to the main feed, but they have an entirely new one. And I'm going to give them a third probably at the end of January as well. So if you enjoyed that material, check it out. They get those monthly. So if you enjoy that, check it out. Patreon.com/NorseCode and sign up over there. Otherwise, you can go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well if you'd like to make a one-time donation, or you can be one of the fine folks who just bought the Wreath socks, wonderful gift, over at norsecode.threadless.com. So check us out there. Here's an interview that Arif conducted earlier today with Cox Sports 1 with Lauren Cox of the Locked On Bears podcast.
All right, I'm here with Lauren Cox at Cox Sports 1. Everyone knows how much I love to say his Twitter handle. It's a classic. I know that he's probably getting sick of hearing me praise it, but he also has said in the past, it's the only reason he's kept it. So I need to keep praising it so that he keeps it forever in perpetuity. How you doing, Lauren Cox?
Hey, I'm doing well, and now I can't change it because if I change it, I lose the blue check mark, so I'm stuck with it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I've been there. Oh my gosh. I was able to change it. I think there was like a glitch in the thing.
How much money did you give Elon?
No. Yeah, we're here to talk about something called the Chicago Bears. Don't know what that's about, but that's who's on the schedule, so that's who we're going to talk about. Lauren, I don't know if I told you this, but you're going to be carrying the entire episode today. I'm not able to record on Thursday, as you know, which means that I'm not recording with James at all, which means there's no mailbag, there's no intro, it's just you and me. Is that a lot of pressure for you?
I just feel bad for your listeners that are going to get an extra dose of Nathan Peterman talk. This was like the 1 week where it's you're really going to subject them to the worst, and where you could use some additional Vikings things because it's going to be an ugly Bears team.
No. After this week, I don't think Vikings fans want more Vikings things. Trust me.
Ugh. But you said at the beginning, like, what are the Chicago Bears? What is a Chicago Bears? And I look at this lineup with all the injuries and trades and the benchings and stuff the Bears have done. I hardly recognize the team that's going to take the field on week 18.
I'm just excited to see a Khalil Mack. Oh wait,
are you just excited to see Roquan Smith? Oh no, never mind.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, I mean, we at least get to talk about the most exciting young quarterback in the division, Nathan Peterman.
Hey,
okay. Well, no. Let's start there. So before the show, I was like, hey, so what is the deal with Justin Fields? I googled it. It was a hip injury, and you responded with, "That's what they're calling it. I need more."
So Bears head coach Matt Eberflus said Wednesday that Justin Fields came to them, I believe on Monday, and said he was having some hip pain. And Matt Eberflus claims they had it scanned and discovered a hip strain is the diagnosis that they're calling it, and that has ruled him out for Sunday's game against the Minnesota Vikings. I would imagine he has had hip pain for maybe 18 weeks now, and I would imagine that you scan that hip at any time up to this point, and you probably find some minor sort of hip strain. And let's keep in mind, he had a left shoulder sprain earlier this season that he's been still dealing with, and that he missed a game and has been playing through ever since. And 2 weeks ago, he was evaluated for a concussion during the game. He also left a game against I don't remember if it was the Eagles or the Bills, when his foot got stepped on particularly hard, and Nathan Peterman finished that game as well. So,
whoa, we got to talk about this because we have all kinds of experience with people stepping on quarterbacks' feet. Who stepped on his foot?
I don't know.
Was it a Bears player?
I don't know. I missed it when it happened. It was like garbage time anyway. So they put in Nathan Peterman, and it was like, oh, okay, well, they're down 4 touchdowns, so they just back up. And then afterward, they're like, yeah, he got stepped.
Why not be down 6? Put Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was like the final 3 minutes of the game. So I actually don't know who. I assume it was an opposing player, but I actually never dug any farther than that because it didn't really have a big impact.
The biggest risk to Kirk Cousins' health has consistently been Ed Ingram, not because he's a bad offensive lineman. He is. Not because he's escorting people into Kirk Cousins, which he is, but because he will step on Kirk Cousins on a pretty consistent basis. So I needed to know if this was like a division-wide thing. I guess it's not. Okay, so he has some kind of hip soreness. You put a huge emphasis on the difference between strain and sprain. I think that's for accuracy, but it made me think that there was like a point you wanted to make about the difference between the two. Probably not, but was
to
there?
Me, not specifically, like just to me that like like a sprained AC joint in your left shoulder sounds a lot more serious and difficult to recover from.
Yes.
Than a hip strain, which just kind of sounds like you ran a little too hard in the previous game and need to rest it up for a day or two with some ice.
Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page then. Okay. Yeah, sure. So before we talk about Peter Nathanman, I think we should talk a little bit about Justin Fields, just because that's just more interesting to talk about. Yeah. And I have like no journalistic obligation in this podcast to faithfully preview the Bears. So I mean, it felt like Justin Fields got better in the second half of the season, and then I look up his EPA per play. That is not true according to at least that statistic. And I was like, well, that's weird. It felt true. And so then I go to PFF, and it's like mega true there. So what's the deal?
I will say there was a stretch of this season where things were really clicking. And this, like right after the midpoint of the season, you know, they beat the Patriots in week 7. Right. Then they were scoring around 30 points a game for about 4 or 5 weeks there against not bad teams in Patriots, Cowboys, Dolphins, Lions, and then Falcons drops off a little bit there. And
right, that's a bunch of great defenses, the Lions and the Falcons.
Yeah, but it's better than, you know, the Texans and the some of the teams the Bears were beating up on earlier in the season that you just know aren't any good. A lot of those teams are around the playoff conversation, if not in the playoff conversation right now. And yeah, things were clicking a little bit over that span. A lot of it being Justin Fields' legs, much more than his arm, which has been difficult, I think, for everyone to evaluate properly in this context.
Well, he threw kind of well against Dallas, right? And also notably against Green Bay.
I think he's thrown well in a lot of games this season. It's just people see 131 passing yards against the Cowboys and say, oh, well, Justin Fields must not have done much as a passer in that game. It was 131 net as a team. I think 151 is what his stat line finished with. But it's been like high passer ratings in a lot of those games and taking care of the ball and a couple of deep shots mixed in and otherwise just being smart with it and just understanding that given the wide receiver talent in Chicago and the offensive line talent in Chicago, that oftentimes the better thing for this offense to be able to score points was just him being able to take off with the legs. And it wasn't always the 150-yard rushing games. Sometimes it was 60, but it was just knowing when on a key third down, you needed to go make that play. And I didn't see it as an incapability of his ability to pass the ball. It was just what's going to be accessible for him in this offense at that time. So like that's the stretch of the season, to get back to your point,
right,
where there was growth and development and improvement from Justin Fields. Since then
what? Yeah. Then what happened?
I still think, you know, even as the scoring has gone down, I still think Justin Fields was playing pretty well in the stretch that followed there. You get, you know, to their bye week.
You were trying very hard to exclude last week. I sympathize.
Last week was the first game that looked like regression.
That's okay.
That's building up to like he's beginning of the season, some struggles. Second leg of that season, offense is clicking. They're scoring points even if he's not passing. Then 2 insanely cold weather games against the Eagles and the Bills, against 2 really, really good teams that, you know, he was fine, but you know, it's kind of a different level of competition there. Lions game was the first.
Okay, no. When you say he was fine, is it he was fine adjusted for my expectations for him, or he was fine compared to how like an average quarterback would perform against those 2 teams? Because if it's the second, that's like huge. Okay.
I don't. It's so hard to compare Justin Fields to other quarterbacks this season. It really is. Like I feel like because it's just
That feels like you're in a bad spot.
well, it's like he's not. I mean, he's attempting 20 passes a game. Like it's just not what you would expect other teams to. How you compare other quarterbacks to, because he's just not being used the way other quarterbacks are used. So it's hard to like say, did he pass compared to like an average quarterback against those teams? I guess, but you wouldn't see average quarterbacks run the system this way and have be put in these kind of situations. So it's just hard to make that comparison. But I do think certainly compared to expectations against a really good Bills defense and a pretty good Eagles defense, like he had to be more of a check down quarterback and just take care of the ball and know that you can't really push it much against those types of defenses, and still did a lot to keep this team in it and move the offense with, again, mixed success. So I'm not concerned overly by how he played in either of those two games. It's kind of understood and accepted. But then in that Lions game, it's the first thing since early on in the season that you're concerned, which, like friend of the show, Mark Schofield, always says quarterback development's not linear, right? Some games he's going to have bad games, and that doesn't mean he's lost everything he's gained as a quarterback and that he's going backwards and that he's a lost cause. He had a good stretch of some good games and then a little bit iffy and then a real stinker. And I don't know that it's like something to be super concerned about. Oh no, like he's lost again and is no longer worth. And the Bears should all of a sudden now draft a quarterback with maybe the number 1 overall pick if the Texans.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, I've always thought that Mark has said that because he's secretly hoping that one day he'll finally be a good quarterback. But I understand.
Mark used to say that about Mitch Trubisky as well. So it is stand multiple Bears quarterbacks.
Oh, that's rough. I mean, that's when you know that that's a perfect cope sentence, right? Well,
yeah, the idea being that generally he might have bad games, but things should still be trending in the positive direction. It'll be 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of thing. And Mitch didn't get that, right? When you started to see step backs, it never got back in the forward.
Have you been following him in Pittsburgh? What do you think about what's going on over there? He's throwing left.
He is throwing left, and I think there's something to be said about getting him out of the system in Chicago, and I think it's just a better, maybe not better than what we saw in 2018, but like we saw Trubisky with a good supporting cast in Chicago do particularly well, and Nagy kind of got so focused on his system and fitting players into his system and then changing play callers to make a system more Trubisky appropriate. And then he did a little better at that time. So like Trubisky's a scheme quarterback, right? If you can scheme things up for him, he can get you 12-4 into a first round playoff loss against the Eagles, right? But other than that, he's got some real limitations there. And that's just kind of who he just, he can't see the field particularly well. And he's a see it, throw it kind of quarterback. And he's got an arm and he can run and there's some ability there. And gosh, people say similar things about Justin Fields, don't they?
Yeah, this is rough. This is, I saw where this was headed. All right, well, I guess ultimate question, Justin Fields, do we stand?
At this point, yeah. I mean, I'm not ready to give him the 5-year max contract extension or anything like that. But
max, this is not the NBA, dude.
Yeah, you're right. I'm still my mind's on basketball, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm talking about like, do you pay the quarterback or not?
Right. Yeah.
We're far from that decision yet, but I think we saw in that stretch of, especially in that stretch of 4 or 5 games where they scored a lot, and across the season, he's gotten better, particularly in the areas that you feel like you need to be in games to do, like pocket presence and going through a progression more quickly against a real defense. We've seen those types of things speed up, the things that we wanted to see speed up for Justin Fields.
That was actually my biggest issue with him last year, because he seemed to see the field correctly but late.
I see. To me, when I see that, to me, it was a quarterback that he wants the big play to be there, right? It's like he's like, I know if I wait on this receiver a little bit longer, he might get open, and the 40-yard bomb is going to be there. And oh man, if I can hit that 40-yard bomb,
and then he gets absolutely demolished by Danielle Hunter. Yeah,
and it feels like he's slow reading the field, and he's having trouble going through his progression because he's not trusting his eyes or whatever. And I think he is, but he isn't, right? He is trusting his eyes, but he's trusting them almost too much, that like, oh yeah, like I know this play could be there, instead of just saying, okay, if it's not there right now, I just got to go and I need to move on to the next progression. And that process has sped up, where like, that was one of the most impressive things. I think it was the Bills game. See, I get those two mixed up. They were both cold against good teams, so the Bears lost. But like he got, like, one of the most impressive plays was a 2-yard loss completion check down to Khalil Herbert, where he went like 1, 2, 3, 4 through the progression and got to the running back check down really fast, but you could see his eyes bounce from receiver to receiver, and he just kind of knew, gotta go. This defense is too good, and my offensive line is terrible. And the result wasn't great, but it's like those kind of things show you the kind of progress in Fields that you're like, yeah, okay, maybe you give him a real NFL offensive line and some real NFL wide receivers. And we don't know if he's still going to be that guy that you want to give a long-term contract to, but we can at least get a real chance at evaluating how much progress he's going to make in a real situation.
Final question before we move on to players that will actually be in the game. Hypothetical, Ravens do not come to an agreement with Lamar Jackson. They call Chicago and they want to trade for Justin Fields because Tyler Huntley throws like a position player. I feel like that's an accurate assessment of Huntley after these last couple of games.
That's Tyler Huntley who kicked the crap out of the Bears last year.
Oh, man. Yeah, that guy. They don't want him.
Yeah.
So they call, they ask about Justin Fields. What price would you be comfortable with?
Now you're asking me and not what I think the Bears general manager would be comfortable with, correct?
Yeah, correct.
I'm not sure that they would consider that trade. I mean,
no, they wouldn't.
Barring something, astronomically, out of this world. For me, so I mean, to be honest with you, it kind of depends a little bit on whether I have the number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick. Because because Houston could take quarterback number 1, or certainly they could trade it to someone else who would take quarterback number 1, and I would want to be sure that I could get the exact quarterback that I would like if I'm going to be replacing Justin Fields in that process.
Do you have a strong opinion on 1 versus 2 in this draft?
I have not spent any time looking at.
Okay. You just want to make sure it's your guy.
Yes, that whoever I'm getting there is actually my guy. That I'm not holding on hope for Stroud or Young, and then that quarterback goes right before me, and then I'm left with my second choice at quarterback after just having had the bird in the hand with Justin Fields there. For me, it's going to take multiple first round picks and maybe a nice young talented player in there. I have to be greedy when you're talking about trading for a young quarterback with a bunch of upside, the one that's been in my building, as opposed to a rookie that's going to be still a little bit more of an unknown, even if I fall in love with a guy in this draft class, whether that's, I don't know, one of their top young offensive linemen, whether it's, Baltimore doesn't have a ton of guys that seem like great trade candidates. How about that linebacker, Roquan Smith? He seems pretty good. I'd take him. But Kyle Hamilton or Tyler Linderbaum or what?
This is crazy. A couple of firsts and Tyler Linderbaum.
I'm just throwing out options here. Some combination of at minimum a first round pick and then either another first or another first round caliber player. I'm giving up a top young quarterback with a bunch of upside that happens to look like a strong fit for this.
You're the first overall pick. You got a quarterback coming in.
But Baltimore still has to pay up for the price of getting this quarterback.
They're the only ones that want to trade for this guy.
Because what if I changed it and said, okay, Baltimore wants to trade for the number 1 overall pick instead, or the number 2 overall pick, whatever, to get a quarterback instead of trading for Justin Fields. All of a sudden it becomes, okay, their first round pick plus, probably another
yes, it does.
One or plus. I know maybe Justin,
because that guy could be anything, even Justin Fields.
You know how much we wanted one of those, yeah.
Yeah, right.
But that's my point, right? It's I'm essentially treating Fields and number 1 pick as a similar value there, even if you might like some of these quarterbacks.
He didn't even go number 1, and there's nothing that he's done I'm a Justin Fields fan, and I find this very funny. He didn't go number 1. He's done nothing to indicate that he should have got number 1.
He had almost as many rushing yards short of Lamar Jackson's NFL record this year with no offensive line and no wide receivers.
Yeah, and what else does Lamar Jackson do? He throws the ball.
He didn't at Justin Fields. You know what I mean? That's... And he's hungry on a cost-controlled contract and has an agent and listens to negotiations with said agent.
Oh, wow.
And
we're turning anti-labor on the podcast. Wow. Oh, wow. Incredible work. All right. Let's move on. Why not Tim Boyle? Why not Packers/Lions legend Tim Boyle?
That is my bold prediction for this game. It is.
What?
I called this on my podcast today. My bold prediction is not that Tim Boyle starts the game, but it's that Tim Boyle throws a pass in this game, or perhaps multiple passes in this game, as a result of Nathan Peterman's inability to lead this offense successfully. That I don't think it'll be quite 5 interceptions in the first half, Nathan Peterman, but not a ton better. and that, Boyle's been in this Luke Getsy offense before. He's now been in Chicago for a handful of weeks, and I just feel like it's week 18. What do you got to lose? Nathan Peterman benched at halftime or so when the Bears are down 28-3, and they say, screw it, let's see what Boyle can do, because this is basically a preseason game for the Bears anyway. The NFL took away your fourth preseason game. They gave Goodell the finger and said, no, we're doing our preseason game week 18. We're getting it in later in the season, whether you'll let us or not. So why not get the other backup quarterback in there and see what he can do once Nathan Peterman predictably struggles?
I was going to say, don't be so harsh on Nathan Peterman. He's finally thrown 11 consecutive passes without throwing a pick. That's not even true. I didn't realize that he'd thrown a pick this year. It's
incredible.
Wild. Oh my God.
And that's who they said, yep, we're benching Justin Fields and starting him.
Gruden had to have seen something in him, right? Like that, right?
I've seen what's in Gruden's emails, so I don't want to. I don't know.
Okay, you won't find a bigger SJW than me on football Twitter, right? Maybe Ben Natan, but like I get it, but like he was a pretty good coach for Derek Carr. Like we can't
fair, totally.
Yeah, which, maybe there's some questions about why he and Derek Carr got along so well. That's not for the realm of this particular podcast. I'm just saying, guy might know quarterbacks. I mean, he knew Chris Sims was garbage.
Maybe there's some reason he and Nathan Peterman got along so well. Maybe like Peterman so much for some reason. I don't know.
Do you think Nathan Peterman voted Justin Fields for captain? That we got to know that.
I thought you were going to ask Nathan Peterman voted for, and then I thought you were going to go somewhere completely different.
No, this is a non-political podcast.
Yes, I know. It was just we were on the topic. Nathan Peterman voted for Joe Biden. Like, yeah, I know. I think Peterman.
He wants to build back better, man. Don't we all?
Yeah, that's the whole Bears strategy right now is to
to build back better Bears. Yeah,
but no, I mean, yeah, I think Peterman's been the consummate teammate. I mean, he does the press conference and stuff. He seems like a genuinely good guy, you know what I mean? And I rail against Nathan Peterman on my podcast, and I always preface that. Like, I'm always like, hey, listen, I'm about to complain about having to watch Nathan Peterman for the next 10 minutes, but I don't know him as a person. He seems like a good guy. I'm sure
all the evidence suggests that he does not deserve what I'm about to do.
Yeah, but on the field, like, I would much rather watch Josh Johnson or any other quarterback you could possibly get me.
Unfair for you to use Josh Johnson as the throw-in. That dude is elite.
Well, exactly, but he's like always available, right? Like that's just every year.
Yeah,
he's been on the Bears before in the offseason, by the way. We're one of the 14.
You got to, yeah. Exactly. Who is he? I think he's not been a Viking, and that fact surprises me.
That's devastating.
Which, hey, Tim Boyle is about to do the divisional roundup. I'm excited to see when he becomes a Viking. Finally, get to know what he looks like.
White quarterback.
Oh wow! Oh, I'm excited then. I mean, you saw how excited I got about Case Cookus, right? Like, it's yeah. Okay, so why is Tim Boyle always around? I don't like what is. Do you know anything about this guy?
Well, I mean, from the Bears' perspective, he was. I mean, Luke Getsy, the Bears' offensive coordinator, was the Packers' quarterback.
Oh, so he can teach. Tim Boyle is the other coach in the room or whatever.
Yeah, he knows. He's
that's fair.
And so Trevor Siemian was their original backup this season, and he got hurt before he even played the first snap. He filled in for Justin Fields. So that was originally the plan to have as the starter if Fields got hurt, and it was, and he gets hurt. So then Peterman was third string. They needed a new third string. Where can we get a guy mid-season that already is sort of familiar with the offense? Tim Boyle, I think, off the Lions practice squad, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is Trevor Siemian originally from Illinois, or did he just oh, he's from Connecticut. Okay. Okay. So,
of course.
So you're not confident in Nathan Peterman. Yeah, I'm gathering.
No.
What is okay, let's do an insult sandwich.
Compliment sandwich, but reverse?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for picking up on what I was. All right, so name the thing that he does the worst, then the thing he does the best, and then the thing he does that annoys you the most if it's not that first thing.
Nathan Peterman doesn't seem to be able to properly read NFL coverages and throw the ball to open receivers.
That's two things.
I sort of say, well, okay, read Okay, read covered, but I mean, I sort of
Right,
throw them over
like as a decision. Okay, I get where you're going. Yeah, it's like a decision making kind of thing. Do you know he has a positive adjusted net yards per attempt now? Sorry, if I took your
small sample size.
yeah. Well, with the Bears, it's negative. But now he got out of the negative that he got from his second year in Buffalo, and he's positive because of the 5 passes he threw for the Raiders.
The man has a 13-3 touchdown to interception ratio in 4 starts.
You mean I understand what you did, but you mean to say 3-13?
What did I say?
13-3.
Oh, geez, yeah, no, that's. I don't need to give him the credit there. The opposite. I mean, so compliment time.
Yeah.
He looks very handsome when he holds.
Oh, come on, man!
Very nice looking young man. Would love to have a beer with that guy. And I can see why, John Gruden, like Nathan Peterman, like that's I get it. He seems like a down to earth fellow. That
Do you know what he looks like?
He had a press conference today. I got to see him for the first time. It was great.
Okay. And then the thing he does that annoys you the most.
Oh, God. I mean, all of it. He exists. He signed the contract. I mean, that's what annoys me the most.
Wow. Yeah, he's a good guy, but the fact that he exists is just really
he exists on this roster. Is what what annoys me the most is that, like, it's not even what he does, but it's just like it's NFL GMs and head coaches where it's like, we know what Nathan Peterman is at this stage of his career. He's not going to come to Chicago and all of a sudden be something different than what we've seen through the first 5 seasons in the NFL.
He has improved substantially since he threw 5 picks and a half
in the sense that
the Chargers.
In the sense that, like, going from -10 to 0 is improvement. Yes. I mean, in fact, in the sense that he had nowhere to go but up, literally could not do worse than what we saw at that time. Yes. But give me the, like, if you're going to have especially a third string quarterback, I understand Simeon as the backup. You want somebody that maybe can, you think can game manage to a win. But, like, as a third stringer, give me the undrafted rookie free agent, the 7th round pick, the 6th round pick that probably will be bad, but we don't know for sure that he's going to be bad. The way that we know for sure that Nathan Peterman, like, give me the lottery ticket with a 1 in 100,000 chance.
Like Taylor Heineke, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's
that's the ticket that pays
White.
off.
I mean, somebody that comes in and just all of a sudden is better than you think they are.
You can't use Mike White. I think he was a 5th round pick.
Well, it still can be a late round pick, undrafted free agent. Somebody that it just is a wild card, as opposed to, like, the known terrible quarterback that they signed before training camp even started. Like, he's been in the building for a long time. They went in the offseason saying, yep, we want this guy as our quarterback 3. We don't need a young quarterback or anybody else that we could be developing into something that could become either a decent backup or a real asset sometime in the future. All
right, let's talk about someone who's good.
On the Bears?
David Montgomery. You think David Montgomery's good. Don't lie.
I know. I got to make the joke, so.
Tell me how Vikings legend Kari Blasingame is enabling David Montgomery's game.
I have wanted to see them use Kari Blasingame even more than they have. I do think David's a guy who, he's not the long speed, explosive, like downhill type of run away from you guys. So he loves that short area quickness. And when you put the fullback in the backfield to create that extra gap, it's an extra read and an extra cut that David Montgomery can make. And that's where I think he's at his best, when he's bouncing around a little bit decisively, but not just like Le'Veon Bell dancing behind the line of scrimmage, but being able to knife and jump cut and kind of slip through and around blockers. And when that fullback leads for him out of the backfield, whether it's, on the tosses to the outside or certainly up the middle, it gives Montgomery another decision point to be able to read that, as he goes through his reads with the blocks in front of him. It's, it's the double team here, and then it's the guard to the second level there. And then usually that's it. Then it's like, okay, there's an unblocked safety that I got to try and make them miss the tackle. But the fullback's that next decision point where it's like cut left, cut right. Which direction do I go? And I think he thrives in making those sort of quick decisions, kind of in a phone booth, but in the sort of messy areas of the field where he can just kind of make that decision, run hard, and keep kind of bouncing off of the contact that he establishes.
You know that David Montgomery graphic? You know what I'm talking about.
Like feet of Saquon Barkley, arms of Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Yeah, Derrick Henry was not on that graphic.
Whatever, you know what I mean.
Feet of I pulled it up. Feet of Saquon Barkley, vision of Le'Veon Bell, strength of Ezekiel Elliott. Odd choice, actually, I think, for that one. Athleticism of Sony Michel. Does that? I think they meant that as a compliment, but does that feel unfortunately accurate?
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of David Montgomery's physical limitations, right? I mean, he's going to run harder.
Good. I don't want to bag on him too much, but like you said, he's not a long speed guy.
No, I mean, there's a real clear distinction between him and Khalil Herbert in this Bears backfield. Herbert is the guy who makes the breakaway runs. Montgomery is the guy who will get you 2 or 3 extra yards than you were expecting by the time you make contact with him, but he's not going to get you the 15 extra yards when he makes one guy miss and slips through a big hole.
So he's like Alexander Madison, but like good.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. But then this is a free agent running back, and how much do you pay a good Alexander Madison? That's a Madison. It's Mattison. That's Madison. And how much do you pay that in the offseason when you do have Khalil Herbert on the under contract? That's
you think Khalil Herbert's a starting running back? Like, I know you're a PFF nerd, and every running back's a starting running back or whatever. But like, come on.
I think you pair Khalil Herbert with a running back who's still pretty good, a hit, but who can contribute in the passing game. Because the Bears are missing, for some reason, both of these running backs. They're really good with the ball in their hands as runners, but when you throw them the ball, they just can't.
Isn't that what Darrington Evans? I know that he hasn't like had any playing time, but isn't that like his old deal?
Well, that was why they drafted Treston Ebner in the 6th round too. Like, he was the receiving back. Evans played pretty well in the little opportunities that they gave him, but wasn't doing much as a receiver. I think he was probably the best pass blocker of the group, which was helpful. And Herbert is terrible in pass protection, and that's where there's some real limitations there. But like, I think Herbert can be your first and second down lead running back in that regard, but not like every down bell cow type, because I just think they would benefit so much from having someone who's a little bit better of a receiver in that regard. And I take Montgomery back at the right price, but I'm not all in on paying him and making sure that he's the guy moving forward.
Let's go to bad players again. Tight ends. Cole Kmet scored a touchdown, a throwback to weeks 8 through 10 when he scored 5. That's a disappointment, right? Like, this guy blows, and he has more yardage than a tight end of his talent you think would warrant. But that, I think, is a marker of the depth that the Bears have. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Cole Kmet's really hard for me to evaluate. Because so I'm not saying I don't think you're wrong.
This sounds like he flashes. This is what that sounds like.
Well, to me, the problem is like he's not a difference maker at tight end, and he's never going to be. Right? He's big and fairly strong, and usually catches the ball when you throw it to him, but will occasionally drop ones that you would like him to hold on to through contested targets. But it's like he's never going to run away from everybody. He's never going to be the guy that just always gets open, and he hasn't been so dominant at contested catches that like he's quote unquote always open even when he's covered type of guy. So then like I don't know what he does well. Like, I don't think he does anything terribly. He's just not special in any way. He's just kind of a scheme guy. Like, I mean, the comparison for him coming out, which was maybe sometimes college focused, but was Kyle Rudolph. And I mean,
okay, so everyone's being compared to Kyle Rudolph now.
Yeah,
it's like the Anquan Bolden of tight ends. Yeah, big, slow. We think he might be able to block well, and he can catch.
Yeah, that's Cole Kmet. Like, I don't know that he's I don't know that he's as good as Kyle. Like, for some reason, I find myself, I trust Kyle Rudolph not to be a 1,000-yard guy or even have 100 yards in the game, but I just feel like
that's fair. Yeah,
I think you can get 50 yards from Kyle Rudolph when you need him to, and I don't feel like that's fully there for Cole Kmet. But at the same time, like, this offense is not passing at a volume to where his receiving yard stats are going to be representative of his ability to produce in this offense. He's averaging more yards per reception this year than he was last year or any time in his career, but his yards per game are way down and his catches per game are way down. And he's got the 6 touchdowns. He had 2 in his whole career before this season. So like it's I think there has been progress there, and tight end development tends to be slow, but all of a sudden we're getting to his 4th season next year and it'll be ready for a second contract. And like, he has not looked like a guy that I'm going to pay any kind of major tight end money to. He looks like a high end number 2 at this point with maybe some 1 upside, but it's like, when is that really going to take over? It just hasn't quite been there.
Fun Cole Kmet stat. You said he has 8 touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns against Detroit and 4 touchdowns against everybody else.
When Detroit loves to play that man coverage, especially down in the red zone, and they just body him up and let him go. And he had a great one-handed catch earlier this season. It wasn't against the Vikings, was it? But where just up the seam, covered, and Fields kind of threw it in front of him. He reached out and snagged it with one hand and pulled it around. It's like, oh, that's the really good Cole Kmet, but that's like the only flash we've seen. You asked earlier if he's had flashes. Like that's kind of the one. And if he could do that more consistently, that's a real weapon for your offense. But instead, he's a guy who you can check it down to. He might run over a smaller defender or two, but just not the difference maker, but also not fully the security blanket yet either. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how to fairly evaluate him in this offense.
I've now become enamored with finding out how much of his production has come solely against Detroit. So give me 1 sec as I figure this out.
This year was 4 catches for 74 yards in the first game and 2 for 27 in the second. But he had a touchdown. He had 3 touchdowns in those 2 games this year.
15.6% of his receiving yardage has come against the Lions, which actually is not as severe as I thought it was. That would have been much funnier if it was bigger.
He's had a couple of he had a 1 catch for 6 yards game against the Lions.
He also had like a 1 target 0, and that was like his opening game. Unfair, I think. He should have been able to play the Lions later in the season.
I bet if we spliced it down to like, okay, his production in the last 2 seasons, what percentage of that has been against Lions, it would be a funnier stat. But then once you start splicing it,
that's just too much work. Yeah, and it looks pathetic after you start slicing.
And Cole Kmet, like who
right, exactly. Yeah, if it was like, hey, I found out this weird thing about Tom Brady. Yeah, absolutely. All right, offensive line is happening. Alex Leatherwood? What's I know he's not gonna start probably, but like Alex Leatherwood?
Yeah, that was another one of these early season waiver additions that we got excited about, like Armand Watts and Emir Smith-Marset, and all 3 of them.
I was right. The Bears are mishandling it. That's the issue. I will not explain how or why.
So with Leatherwood, he joined the team. Then he was on the non-football, I don't remember his illness or injury list. I don't remember what it was. I think they described him as sick, but I don't remember how so he was like away from the team for like a month with something that we still don't fully understand. That's what it felt like, a month. I could be wrong in the timeline there. Came back, worked back into the practice rotation a bit, was a healthy scratch for a little while. And then all of a sudden they rotated him in the starting lineup with Riley Reif at right tackle. They kind of do a couple of drives with Riley Reif and then give Leatherwood a drive, and was okay the first game and then an absolute disaster the second game. And he's been a healthy scratch ever since. They got him as far away from the football field as possible and said, yep, still a project. And we'll see how patient they want to be with him. They've certainly had every opportunity to get him on the field. They've been training him is the word they use. They've been having him practice at guard and tackle.
Oh, okay. Training. Okay. That makes sense.
And so now just Wednesday, their starting right guard, Tevin Jenkins, went on injured reserve. Their backup right guard, Michael Schofield, went on injured reserve. So they are going with their third string right guard. And despite Leatherwood practicing at that position, it will not be him.
Okay. Dieter Eisland?
Yes. He's been their backup center for the last couple of seasons.
This is like the third football player named Dieter I've heard of, and that is too many.
There's also Michael Dieter, the Dolphins guard from Wisconsin, who spells his name.
Yeah, but he spells it wrong. Yeah, yes. That's not a Dieter.
I spelled that wrong so many times in college, you have no idea. I covered him and interviewed him many times, and I could never get that.
Yeah, I do the consensus draft board. I know how many times people spelled his name wrong.
That's right. Good kid, though. But no, so right guard's an abject disaster there. But everything else is pretty much kind of how they expected it, which is not great, but it's at least the devil you know versus the devil you don't, I guess.
All right. So Michael Schofield, Tevin Jenkins, Doug Kramer, Dakota Dozier, there's a name.
Rip.
And I believe Lucas Patrick is an offensive lineman. I'm just looking at the IR list. Lucas Patrick's an offensive lineman, right? So
Lucas Patrick was the week 1 starter at right guard, rotating with Jenkins, was supposed to be the starter at center. He was the Packers center the last couple seasons and was supposed to be like the leader of this offensive line, and now he's hurt on IR. So you're missing 2 true starters there in Jenkins and Patrick. Kramer was a rookie that wasn't really going to play much. Dozier was injured in July when they put him on injured reserve. He's just there collecting checks, and now Schofield was kind of the fill-in there.
This is even worse than the defensive back situation. We'll get to that.
I don't know. I disagree.
Well, I just mean in terms of raw numbers. Actually,
again, I still disagree.
All right, fair enough. All right, so but is Braxton Jones, is he a 5th round rookie? That felt desperate. Is he good?
Good. So it's the question you asked earlier about Fields against the Bills, right? Is he good for an offensive lineman, or is he good for what expectations should provide him?
Okay, he is going up against a Darius Smith.
He has impressed even beyond what we expected for a 5th round pick for a lot of this season. Like there have been, especially in that stretch when the team was playing really well, like he looked like a real starting caliber left tackle, not a top 15 left tackle, but a starting caliber left tackle, which for a 5th round rookie was great. This last week against Detroit, he was one of the many players that just all of a sudden forgot how to play football. I mean, he got his butt whooped a few different times, and I don't think PFF credited him with both sacks, but there was a play where he was involved in 2 sacks in 3 plays, like just a series where he got bull rushed twice and got absolutely destroyed. And I think someone else got credit for one of the sacks there, but like it was just this weird sort of like, whoa, like he had been playing so well and now he has that little regression, and you're not super worried that it's a major regression, but it's something to keep an eye on here. But definitely looking like a guy that sure you can upgrade from, but I think they may go into next season barring some major free agent option that they just can't pass up, but probably going to be your starting left tackle next year as the plan. Because preseason, like he was competing. It was him versus Riley Reif and Larry Borum and Tevin Jenkins were all at the tackle spots. And it was like best man win. And Braxton Jones was clearly the best of that group, which is not a great group, but still the best of what they had. And a guy they weren't like forcing into the starting lineup. They just said he's better. He beat out. I mean, it was him versus Riley Reif really at left tackle at the beginning. And Joe Jones was the clear winner there and has played like I think the better of the 2 offensive tackles for the majority of the season.
And Riley Reif is starting this week, though, right?
Yes, and he's very mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with
Yeah, you guys remember.
Okay, receivers. Don't have Darnell Mooney, haven't for a little bit. Don't have Dante Pettis, ?
I believe he returned to practice coming from concussion, but I've got to pull it up here.
Sure.
A full participant in practice this week, but not a guy to even talk about.
All right. Velus Jones is playing receiver. That's cool for him.
Barely.
Chase Claypool hasn't learned the playbook yet. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, so definitely been a little bit slow in the playbook, and then he hurt his knee 2-3 weeks ago now and has been on a snap count limit ever since.
Oh, okay. So the recent snap count stuff is knee related. The earlier snap count stuff was, he knows like 6 plays.
Exactly. And so he hasn't really had a good stretch of both knowing the plays and being healthy. He's not currently listed on the injury report, but like clearly just last week, he was not playing a full allotment of snaps, and I'm not expecting him to in this game either.
I blame the Canadian education system. It's awful. No, I've just been spending a lot of time in Canada for reasons I fully don't understand myself, and I hate it now.
And players say that their offense asks a lot of wide receivers, even more so than other offenses in terms of.
Okay, but like really?
No, I mean, yes, you would expect you trade a high 2nd round pick for a guy. He should figure it out and be in there. There's no doubt Claypool has been a disappointment in Chicago. Question is how much is fully his fault with the injury, but definitely at least a chunk of it is his fault, just not being good enough.
So when it's like we ask a lot of receivers, it's like, all right, so we call one play, and for a receiver that could break into 4 or 5 different routes with different route depths based on the coverage we see, that's what asking a lot of a receiver is? Or
yes.
What is it? More complex than that? Less complex than that? Like,
no, that's about it. Plus, they have a more, I think, robust blocking assignments for them in terms of they're not just running downfield and playing patty cake with the cornerback, but like they're more involved in the actual design of a lot of running plays, and often are the difference between running plays springing big and not.
But they're not point of attack.
They will block down on pin and pull. Like they had Dante Pettis block Aiden Hutchinson last week. How well do you think that went?
Oh Jesus. Okay, well that does actually explain something. Okay, Claypool is like 240 pounds.
Yes. He's built for. That's why they traded. That's part of why they traded for him. There's a reason to trade for a wide receiver, but they're like, yeah, he's big.
You got like Velus Jones and Dante Pettis and Byron Pringle. And you're like, yeah, those guys, they'll be blocking down on defensive ends. And then you got Chase Claypool, and it's like, oh, he doesn't know the playbook yet.
Exactly. That's where we're at right now. Welcome to the Chicago Bears football 2022.
You can't have an offense where it's like 3 kick returners and Equinemius St. Brown, and you're like, yeah, these guys are going to be blocking.
Well, here's the thing. Equinemius St. Brown got a contract extension on Wednesday.
Well, that's fine. He's fine. Why are you having him block?
Hey, he's 6'4". He's got some size, but yeah, it's
I've seen him block.
yeah, he's actually not that bad as far as it's gone in this offense this season. I mean, he's been a guy that's been more reliable in that area than I certainly expected.
Oh, well, that's okay. Fair enough. N'Keal Harry, I trust N'Keal Harry to at least be mean. I don't know if he's a good blocker.
You can trust him to be a healthy scratch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough.
He might play a little bit in this game, but he just, it's been Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown have basically been wide receiver 1 and 2 since Darnell Mooney's been out because Claypool's been kind of hurt and Velus Jones barely plays, and Byron Pringle just recently has taken over the lion's share of the snaps, but he's been injured on and off too. And
yeah, I mean that's been his story.
As much, it's an absolute garbage wide receiver core.
Well, it's like 3 slot receivers
and some
tight end Chase Claypool.
Yeah, there's a big need there.
All right, let's talk about the Bears' historical strength in defense.
Oh, jeez.
I'm making fun of the Bears. The Vikings are going to get boat race now.
Not by Nathan Peterman. By Justin Fields, maybe, but not by Nathan Peterman. That changed the whole math here. But and I know you probably had a question to get to on defense, but like I was going through it. There's like 3 week 1 starters still in the lineup on this defense.
Are you kidding me? Really? Wait, because Jaquan Brisker was not a week 1 starter, right?
Well, Brisker was. Brisker and Gordon. It's Brisker, Gordon, Nick Morrow, and Justin Jones. Those are the 4 guys who are actually going to start this game that started week 1.
Oh, my God.
There's a couple guys that like Al-Qadim Muhammad will still play off the bench, and he was a week 1 starter, but it's really been benched and relegated to backup roles. And like
the 5th rounder? Is that why?
Yeah, they've been wanting to get the rookie more of the playing time there. Okay.
And hey, Jalen Holmes, I remember him.
He has not played. He played a little bit as like the 5th defensive end in here, but not much.
Yeah. All right, we can go through this a little bit. You said 3?
I think 4. Jones, Morrow, Brisker, and Gordon.
There's 11, so this is now no longer impressive.
7 new starters seems like a lot. I don't know.
I saw the 2021 Vikings. It's fine. Famously a good defense. All right. Okay. So is the starter Travis Gibson then on the left side?
It'll be Gibson. Well, it'll be Gibson for sure. And then last week they started Justin Jones at defensive end and rotated between both. Yeah, he's been playing a lot of defensive end the last like 4 games.
This is a 4 down front.
Yes, like the edge rusher at the 7 technique at 6'2", 309 pounds. They'd put like Mike Pennell and Angelo Blackson as like 2 nose tackles, and then put Justin Jones. The first play of the game last week against the Lions was Jones at 7 technique with Pennell and Blackson at the 2 tackles, and then Gibson on the other side.
The only reason Justin Jones wasn't a nose tackle at NC State is because BJ Hill is enormous. Like,
yes,
this is wild. What?
They don't have a pass rush. It's maybe the worst defensive line in football. They just don't have a pass rush.
That's incredible.
So put a big guy out there can help stop the run a little better. I mean, it didn't work against Detroit, but maybe. And
Armon Watts looks bad with this group?
Yes, he's kind of got benched against Detroit a little bit. He dropped 5 snaps. So I'm not sure if to call him a starter anymore or not. He still played like 30 snaps, but he was kind of the 4th guy in the defensive tackle rotation again.
Well, Mike Pennell is good. We can agree on that.
I mean, good is a relative term, but yeah, he's been playing
at his specific job of being a nose tackle.
He's a good journeyman rotational defensive tackle. Yes.
All right. This is okay. Well, Dominique Robinson. That's kind of an athlete. It's pretty good, right?
He's got like a half a pass rush move, but I think
that was my worry.
This playing time is really good for him, though, right? I mean, he started playing defensive end 2 years ago. He was recruited to college as a quarterback, played wide receiver for 2 years at college, then moved to pass rusher, edge rusher. So, like, anything they get from him this year is gravy. Like, that was a developmental pick. Give him some playing time and let him see what it's like to go against NFL pass rushers, and he can hustle his way into a sack or 2. He's just, he's going to work hard and be fast, and kind of like Leonard Floyd early in his career. He'll just show up at the quarterback if he runs enough and the quarterback still has the ball.
At least he didn't cost a 1st-round pick.
Yeah. And Dominic Robinson is not as good as Leonard Floyd was, even as a rookie. I'll say that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Nick Morrow, Joe Thomas, not that one. And former Vikings Elijah Lee, DeMarquise Gates, and a guy named Matthew Adams. What's up here?
So Morrow, one of the 4 week 1 starters in this team, was sort of the weak side linebacker for, or was the Mike with
You sure you don't
Roquan
want to
Smith.
ratchet that number up to 5 or 6?
What do you mean?
Well, you started at 2, then I went to 3, then I went to 4.
I don't think I started at 2, but it's been 4. I mean, okay, if you want to say base defense, then Matthew Adams was also a week 1 starter, but hardly played.
So we all right? Oh, okay, all
I'm
right.
starting 5 DBs because that's really the starting defense nowadays. Out of your 5 DBs, you have 2 of them that were week 1 starters. Out of your 2 nickel linebackers, you have 1 starter, and out of your 4 defensive linemen, you have 1 starter. But anyway, to answer your question, Morrow, athletic but weak. He's like Roquan Smith, but like worse. He's just a smaller. He's like a thinner, slower Roquan Smith, but still pretty.
That just sounds like a bad safety.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he's got some of that Mark Barron to him, in that spot there. But
Oof.
he's the guy that against the Lions last week, there was a running play to the right side where he ran left and Joe Thomas ran right. Like they split opposite directions and Morrow ran away from the running back and Thomas ran towards the running back. And it's just like, God, it's week 17 and you're supposed to be like the experienced veteran starter. But no, I mean, it's a mediocre linebacker crew. Thomas and Adams are both pretty good in run defense, not reliable in coverage. And Morrow is not as good in coverage as you'd think for the athleticism that he has, but he's not a total liability there either. Just not. It's like Roquan Smith without the elite instincts. It's just kind of, he's fast and can move around.
Really important to who Roquan Smith is, like critical to who Roquan Smith is.
But like Roquan, if you put a really good defensive line in front of Nick Morrow, he's going to get to the ball in a hurry and make some big plays. But it's just without any kind of, quality blocking or quality, I guess, block holding up front, giving him some clean lanes to work through. He's not doing much for you.
All right. Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, Kendall Vildor, Dane Cruikshank. Am I missing anyone?
Those are the big injured reserve guys, but it's looking. Oh, they just added Joshua Blackwell.
Josh Blackwell. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Dude,
and then,
right? Yeah.
Jalen Jones was hurt last week and is DNP at practice with a concussion that is still in the concussion protocol. And so I'm not expecting him to play this week, but they haven't.
Is this like a Michael Ojemudia game?
That's so I put out I made a little quick graphic of like Bears starting lineups, and yeah, when I tried to go from Jalen, I went from Jalen Johnson to Jalen Jones to question mark because it'll either be can you say his last name because I've never said it before.
I don't know if I have it right. Ojemudia.
Yeah, it's either him or Breon Borders. I mean, both players have never played a snap for the Chicago Bears and came on the team within the last month, and one of them will likely start this game at outside cornerback. So that's what we're in store for here. And Harrison Hand revenge game.
Yeah, no, okay. So I was going to get to Harrison Hand because that rounds out the surprise. So anytime we go through this, there's always a number of former Vikings because that's how the NFL works. Some people go through 5 teams and eventually, the bottom of the roster is going to turn again. But there's a lot of former Vikings on this one. So you've got Harrison Hand, you got DeMarquise Gates, you got Elijah Lee, you've got Armon Watts, you got Jalen Holmes. That's just on the defense. Obviously, Amir Smith-Marset is no longer a member of the Bears, but
Dakota Dozier too.
Yeah, Dakota Dozier, Kari Blasingame. I mean, it feels like a lot, right?
Especially defensively, yeah. But like to be honest with you, I had no idea. I knew Harrison Hand was a former Viking. Did not know that about Lee or Gates. I think I knew that about Holmes. Like, I mean, a lot of those guys have bounced around a few different places. Like, yeah, Watson, Hand, and Amir Smith-Marset, and even Dozier. Like those more direct Vikings ones, yeah, strikes me as a little bit strange, especially because it's not like the Vikings.
It's not like a system
talent factory that like, oh, you got to.
Yeah, it's not like you're grabbing linebackers from the 49ers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's I mean, no disrespect to some of those players that are talented, and like the Bears were excited to get Watson, Amir Smith-Marset. There was upside there, and it just
I felt like they were right to be excited, man. I don't know what went wrong.
The Vikings should have been excited that Amir Smith-Marset was going to hand them a game back in week 5.
Yeah. Apparently, it was because they had practiced against it. Did you hear that?
Yeah, and he was so good at fumbling in Minnesota too. So he's just used to it. It's like too comfortable.
Okay, so you've got the guys that you're projecting in that secondary right now is Michael Ojemudia. Let's just say him because it's fun to say his name.
Sure.
Jaquan Brisker, DeAndre Houston Carson, Harrison Hand, and Kyler Gordon.
Yes.
Let me be a therapist. How does that make you feel?
Well, we saw in week 5 the Bears, for some reason, even on third downs, go single high man coverage Jalen Jones one-on-one versus Justin Jefferson. So, like, I'm just nervous now,
Dope.
even without Jalen Jones one-on-one. If it's Harrison.
Michael Ojemudia is fine. Come on. You're good.
They don't even have, like, Jalen Johnson to shadow coverage if they want to. I mean, I imagine they'll probably try and, the Vikings will do whatever they can to keep him away, even from Kyler Gordon, who hasn't even been that good, but he's still the best of the bunch here. It's going to be disastrous. I was talking to Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings about, like, Justin Jefferson not being
you don't need to say that guy's name.
Book Laron.
Yeah, there you go.
Locked On Vikings, and he about how Justin Jefferson's like kind of close to either like 2,000 yards and maybe some records beyond that.
Not after last week, but
isn't he like not that far from at least 2,000? Like
he's not like it is easily conceivable that he hits 2,000. It's just he needed to average 125 over the last 2 games, and he got 15 last game. So it's just like, oh, okay, well now he needs to get like 200 something. Got it. Cool.
If they played him all 4 quarters this game, I think he could do it, but I feel like he's going to be out by halftime with 125 yards. That's the problem here. Like Kirk Cousins is going to be done with a 35-3 lead at the half, and it's going to be Vikings backups in the third and fourth quarter, and there goes all your shots at records.
If he's at 180 getting out of halftime, which I think he's done once this year already, hit 180 by the half. If he's at 180 by halftime, yeah, you'll see him. They're going to want him to get 2,000 just for his sake. But I don't know if he's going to hit 200 in this game, man.
I mean, it's a lot to ask, but if there was ever a week that could do this, I just don't know if Nick Mullins can get him the ball well enough to do so. I don't know.
It kind of doesn't matter at this point. Nick Mullins, Tim Boyle, David Blau. I guess David Blau's not on the roster either, but who cares?
Didn't he start for like the Cardinals this week?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the concussion protocol. So yes.
Jesus, man.
Coleman's got to retire, man. This is like his 7th concussion or something. Look, man. Everyone already likes you. Just retire.
But he could make that sweet Chase Daniel money somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Chase Daniels, he never got a concussion because he never played.
Well, he's just better at picking teams, I think, than some of these other quarterbacks. Like he goes to Chicago behind Trubisky, and he's in Kansas City behind Patrick Mahomes. Like he knows what he's doing. Yeah,
he gets the one game a year, and he's like, all right, I've proved I still got it. Let's go. Go Mizzou.
Stay in that system, stay in that Andy Reid system, and collect fat paychecks.
All right, so I feel like what's the line? Do you know what the line is?
So when Trubisky was benched, I saw it jump all the way up to -8, but that was like I watched that
Justin
live.
Fields Trubisky.
Jesus, yeah, you're right. We just talked about Chase Daniels.
Good Lord, you are in a bad spot.
I know Freudian slip or whatever, but I do feel a lot better about Justin Fields right now than things ended with Mitch Trubisky. That's for sure.
Oh, Vegas Insider doesn't even have the Vikings game. Oh,
I've got bet line at 7.5 right now, and it was 8 earlier today.
All right. The way you've talked about this Bears team, way worse than a 7.5 point difference. Is that because A, we exaggerate things for effect on podcasts? B, Vegas knows that backups will be in the second half, and the Vikings seed situation will probably have been figured out by then. Or C, we're dumb and wrong and bad. Or all of the above. I don't know.
Yeah, well, isn't the Vikings seed situation not figured out until the 3:30 window with the Seahawks game?
Oh, right, yeah, because they didn't move this game. For some reason, I thought they moved this game. So yeah, they have to wait for the seed situation to be figured out. So the Vikings have something to play for.
Sort of, yeah. No, I mean, my pessimism about this team in this game is largely Peterman based. I mean, I just have zero faith in.
Name a nice thing you said about those receivers.
Well,
all right, the offensive line. Defensive line. You call the defensive line the worst. Okay, yeah, for a 5th round rookie. You said the defensive line was the worst one in the NFL.
I said Riley Reif's an average right tackle.
This is rough.
Cole Kmet can catch the ball sometimes. Like, I mean, I said
you did say Cole Kmet can catch the ball sometimes. That is something you said.
It's like so much of this Bears offense was Justin Fields based. I mean, obviously the running, but passing too. Like so often his legs create some openings there, and it's just like Nathan Peterman's going to throw curls and slants and go 3 and out 10 times. Like that's just if they can score 10 points, it'll be a miracle.
It's just like wild for you to say my pessimism is Nathan Peterman based, and then just destroy the wide receivers. Talk about how 3/5 of the offensive line shouldn't even be in the NFL. Call the defensive line the worst defensive line in football. And then complain about the linebackers, and then list all the injured defensive backs.
To me, that's just a ringing endorsement of Justin Fields. In spite of all of that, I thought, you know what? With Fields in this game, put the Vikings on upset alert. That I think that he can legitimately push some things this way.
Look, man, we have a scarecrow at safety, but, Justin Fields is in there.
No, I mean, like Houston, Carson, and Brisker aren't terrible saves. They're pretty good. They're young. They got
I like Brisker. He just makes some mistakes.
Yeah, he's the deep safety, even in run defense. It's just it's a little rough there. But Houston Carson has made some nice plays a couple times this season. Gordon has
is he the deep safety because Houston Carson is just better in the box? Because I feel like Brisker is also better in the box.
No, I mean Brisker's much more truly the strong safety, and Houston Carson is the free safety type. But they just sometimes will rotate safeties. I mean, right? They're not permanently the deep safety versus underneath safety. So majority of the time, Brisker's not deep, but there have been a couple of breakaway running plays where Brisker's the last line of defense, and he takes the worst angle in the world and just falls over and doesn't even.
Yeah, but if he had taken the right angle, that would have been a hell of a hit.
Or if he had started in the box and didn't have to take such a deep angle, like I think he gets to the ball carrier and makes a play.
All right, that's fair. Any reason to talk about like Tristan Gill or whoever?
The punter,
Trenton Gill. Yeah, there it is.
Trenton Gill. No, Velus Jones has been a really good kick returning the last like 3 or 4 weeks. He's gotten to the 50-yard line like pretty much once a game. So like it feels like one of these games he's going to break through and go all the way. And I could see something like that happening in a game like this. Dante Pettis has been the punt returner and gets every 5-yard that you'll possibly give him, but he's never going to get more than 20 on a punt return. Like he's never going to run away from people, but he'll take whatever space is there. And Cairo Santos has missed more extra points than field goals this season, but seems to have figured it out.
Yeah, I was going to say Cairo Santos seems to be having one of his better seasons.
Yeah, there's this weird thing where he like was missing an extra point a game for a while, but has been lights out from 50 plus.
We love that on this podcast.
So and he gave a pretty good explanation and a fix for it. I know I don't want to get into his special teams weeds, but he was like,
we need to get into special teams weeds. What?
He's like, I take every PAT from the right hash, and I have for the last like 10 years of my life. And it's like, it's so automatic now that I don't think about it. And what I had them do is start changing up which hash and put in the middle of the field where they're taking the PATs. So I have to focus on it like a field goal, and then I nail it right down the middle. Like he was almost taking it for granted. Like it was just
kidding me.
No,
what?
It's like I needed to make it more difficult, essentially, to get back into the rhythm of making these. So I would actually focus on it, think about it, and do it instead of just going through the motions that was leading me to kick these a little bit wide. The darndest thing. And he hasn't missed a field goal since he switched which hash he's been taking these from.
You mean extra point?
It makes an extra point, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, I drive at night because it forces me to focus. Otherwise, I'm just going to fall asleep at the wheel regardless. But if I have to focus, come on, what? That's crazy. I mean, I get it. Like I get it, but like that's nuts.
It is. The kicking game in general is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Special teams is like historically long been stupid. All right, that's fair. Score prediction.
God,
the line is 7.5, and buddy, if you take the Bears points, I'm gonna. Where are you, Chicago?
God bless you. This is why I was getting. This is why I was getting the names mixed up. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, so I was like Alexander Mattison, and I was like hard to.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You had me in your like Wisconsin radio station for 1 year. Yeah,
that was my last job. Yeah, I forgot about that.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to Madison, Wisconsin. God bless me. And expeditiously leaving Madison, Wisconsin after I do whatever I need to do to you in a Luke Braun mask.
Anything people love about Minneapolis, Madison has a lot of in just smaller capacity. We'll always vouch for Madison, Wisconsin.
Except bars. They have more of those.
Oh, totally. Well, yeah, that's like the good part. But anyway, score prediction. I actually will be going to one of those as soon as we wrap up this podcast. Half price tacos and margaritas at 9 p.m. So, we're getting there. But the score prediction, I've definitely taken the Vikings plus there for sure. And I find myself in predicting a Vikings blowout. I was going to go like 31-13 Vikings.
So wait. So the Vikings are going to bookend their seasons in the only multiple score wins they'll have.
Sure feels like it that way.
Week 1, Week 18, the only multiple score win. I
just can't see Nathan Peterman scoring more than 13 points in a game.
Oh, he'll score more than 13. It's just not going to be all for the Bears.
But see, I could see Tim Boyle scoring more. You know what I mean? So like, it's 3-28 at the halftime. Tim Boyle comes in, gets a couple of touchdowns in there, and gives us a ball game again.
How old is Tim Boyle? Is he still like 24 or something crazy?
No, he's got to be like 27, 28 now. It feels
like because he's never played. He's 28.
Came in the league in 2018. This is his 5th season.
Okay, so he came to the league already old, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he must have been 23 coming out of Eastern Kentucky.
Wow.
He just turned 28 this season, so mid-year.
His Packers photo looks very young, extremely young. His Lions photo looks real old.
His Bears photo seems to be kind of in the middle, as if this is the one I'm looking at. He's like, he looks like a 28-year-old. I don't know.
All right. So your predictions: A, Vikings cover. B, Tim Boyle throws multiple passes.
I'll say at least one pass. So multiple.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Multiple passes. D, Cairo Santos does not miss an extra point. No, that's C. Anyway, does not miss an extra point. Either because he doesn't have to kick any because there's no touchdowns, or because he's making it harder on himself. He's like wearing. You know how? Okay, this is what I wanted. In Ocean's 11. Okay, actually, this analogy doesn't work at all. But in Ocean's 11, the guy puts a thumbtack in his shoe so that his stress levels are always high when he takes the lie detector exam.
Oh, I haven't seen the movie, but that sounds really smart.
You haven't seen Come on!
I haven't seen any of the Oceans 11, 12, 13. Or I don't know how many there are now. Too many oceans, if you ask me. I grew up with 5 oceans.
Okay, first of all.
Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, Antarctic, and the other one.
Arctic?
Whatever. However many oceans there are. They're not 13.
Okay, look. The guy's name is Danny Ocean. He has a team of 11. It makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Danny Ocean. Who's last name? You ever met somebody with the last name Ocean?
It's in Vegas. They're all showmen. Okay? It works.
Danny Ocean.
Also, it's George Clooney. Come on. Okay, you got to watch these. Okay, screw this podcast. You got to watch these movies, man. Okay, no one likes Ocean's 12, fair, but only because Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 13 are phenomenal. Ocean's 12 is actually a pretty good movie. It's just not as good as the other two. Watch all 4 of them. Ocean's 14 is like, it does not have the same vibe. Totally different cast. But yeah, it's cool.
So do they like rob a casino or something? Or like, what are they heisting?
Yeah. Most of the time.
Okay. I feel like I've seen the Futurama episode when they did like the Ocean's 13 parody. So I have a gist of what's going on.
Okay. Heist is like the best genre of movie. So it's like a reverse mystery. And I don't know why that sells it, but to me, that's like, oh, hell yeah.
You know what's going to happen, but you don't know how they're going to do it? It's kind of
yeah, basically, right? It's like, because like the whole whodunit is like, we have to kind of, look at all the clues and figure out, like, we're working along, at least in a good mystery movie, you're working along with the detective, right? Or with, whoever is trying to solve the mystery, and the clues in the movie will often point you in the right direction. There's like red herrings, and you have to kind of deduce all of that based off of like things like in movie clues, right? Like there's a footprint here, and like context clues based off of movie language, like this is foreshadowing and stuff like that. And in heist movies, it's like, yeah, you are never gonna know how they did this until at the very end when they reveal the magic trick. It rules. So I recommend you watch all the Oceans and then watch a better heist movie than all 4 of them in Inside Man. That one also rules. It rules even harder. So that's your homework. You have 5 movies to watch. The game's on Sunday.
I feel like I would rather just go to like the actual Ocean rather than like sitting down and watching Ocean's movies. That's just
instead of watching good movies?
I don't know, man.
Okay, is there anyone you know that doesn't like the Ocean's movies?
I've never heard it. I know I've never. It's not about them not being good movies. It's just like, I don't know. Like
Do you just not like movies?
I'm not a big movie person. To me, it's. I mean, like I like movies, but like if I'm gonna sit down and devote a couple hours to something, like I don't know, I got better things to do with my time.
That's okay. Did you like the John Wick movies?
Haven't seen them.
Okay, I have bought a ticket to Madison.
I just how about this? The most recent movie I ever watched was the Brendan Fraser Return of the Mummy. Is it number 2? I think is that one.
What is wrong with you? Why is that the movie you saw?
Great movie. Oh my god, great film.
That's the movie you chose. Like, oh man, if I a couple hours, you can do anything in a couple hours. I'd rather not sit and watch a screen. Oh, but the Brendan Fraser Return of the Mummy, yeah, 100%. Are you kidding me?
The key, see, to me, is the key is the people that I'm with and the beverage that's in my hand. We had a good time.
Well, you will be with the people. It's me, and there'll be a beverage. You don't know if that beverage is safe.
There will be food. It's a knuckle sandwich.
Yeah, picking up on the vibe. All right. See you in Madison, Wisconsin in an unknown number of days. I will have what is known as a DVD.
What?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. All right. Thanks for coming on, man.
Is that like a Blu-ray? Like,
yeah, no, it's very similar.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, it's like it's like when you stream something from Netflix or HBO Max or Hulu, but you don't have to be connected to the internet, but you do need something that can read a disc.
I don't know that I have anything.
Okay.
My
Like
PS5 doesn't have a disc reader. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. The new consoles don't. Well, we'll figure it out. All right, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it.
Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah, of course. You can hear me 5 days a week on the Locked On Bears podcast. And as you mentioned, I'm on Twitter at Cox Sports 1. I always say it's like Fox Sports 1, but with a C.
Okay, that's like ruining the joke, though, right? Can you explain it? That is the whole joke.
Well, that and it sounds. I mean, my last
name and penis, right? I get it.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like I wasn't sure which joke you were talking about ruining. Yes.
Yeah, but like the penis joke works because it's also Fox Sports 1.
Exactly.
Okay, you have no problem explaining the joke. That's fine.
I mean, it's for the listener, because a lot of times people say it fast and like, wait, his Twitter handle is what? And it's like, oh, well, I do want them to actually be able to find me.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
If you search the other Cox Sports 1, you might not find what you're looking for. I haven't actually searched it. Yeah. I just assume it probably exists, and you might not like everything.
Is this like whitehouse.com versus whitehouse.gov?
Exactly.
All right. Tune into the real Cox Sports 1 for some raw football action on Twitter at Cox Sports 1. That's the number 1. And you can also listen to him at Locked On. Actually, the fact that it's the Bears, I think, given that the Bears is a term in the queer community,
doesn't help.
Yeah,
I could go.
You must have a very loyal fan base.
Yeah, I've occasionally gotten followers that are searching for something that are not what my Twitter account was here to provide for them, but they
right because you're a twink and not a bear. I get it. God damn it. All right, man. Thanks so much. Peace out.
And that's going to be it for, well, it's not really it, because I have a question I do want to read before we leave. This is from R. Menson B. Sharif over on the Discord, who asks, for the "This is all James's fault" corner, the evidence shows James is clearly a master of the mystic arts. In the Packers preview episode, James clearly stated that this week, quote, "this is sustainable, thus initiating a curse." James has a documented interest in cursed items. James suspiciously shut down the magic corner when the heat got turned up on him. Knowing North Dakota has limited access to the goods he needs to perform his dark arts, James manipulated a reef into getting lunch next to an occult bookstore so he could stock up. How else did James know it was there when a reef clearly didn't? So my question is, did James intentionally curse the Vikings this week? And to follow up, is Kevin O'Connell's interest in the mystic arts purely something to counteract James's evil. That's impressive. That truly is impressive. However, the reason I knew that the bookstore was there was literally I parked there and I noticed when we came back. Otherwise, no, I had no idea. And it's not going to help the fact that my cousin in the Bismarck Mandan area just opened like a Wiccan shop, is it? Yeah, this isn't helping my cause at all. But no, I just want to make it clear I am not a master of the mystic arts. I'm just a podcaster. I'm just a schmuck who edits and records audio. That's all I do. That's going to be it for this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. For Reef, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember that this is not sustainable. And we'll be back next week. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of Pro Football Network, and he can be found at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a few different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merchandise. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.